Thank you for joining us. I'm Roxana Rustamji from the Sabin Vaccine Institute, and this interview is part of our Sabin's Pivoting in a Pandemic series, which captures stories of extraordinary leaders like yourself who are adapting to advanced research and protecting public health in the midst of COVID. Today we have Dr. Betty Mwesigwa, Deputy Executive Director at Makerere University Walter Reed Project in Kampala, Uganda. Welcome, Betty. If you could briefly describe your role and responsibilities at Makerere University Walter Reed Project, we'd love to hear that.
Thank you, Roxana. I'm excited to be here speaking with you. My name's Betty Mwesigwa. I'm a medical doctor by training and a clinical trialist. As you mentioned, I am the Deputy Executive Director for Makerere University Walter Reed Project. And this responsibility includes ensuring that the strategic plan for the organization is met. And Makerere University Walter Reed Project is a not-for-profit research organization, biomedical research organization. And we conduct clinical studies among humans. So my role is to work with the management and the board of the Makerere University Walter Reed Project to ensure that our research agenda is strategic and meets public health demands for the country. We work collaboratively with many of our international and local collaborators, national stakeholders like the Ministry of Health. So I have a liaison role with the key national stakeholders to ensure that the work we do is of high quality, ethical, high standards, but also, most of all, meets the public health needs of our country and our people.
Absolutely. And you've worked pandemics before, isn't that correct? HIV, TB, Ebola. Can you just tell us a couple of sentences on those pandemics that you've worked?
Okay. So we have worked on several clinical studies for HIV, about 5 early phase trials for HIV, and we also do run a PEPFAR funded program for ART, HIV care and treatment. But we also have a program where we are set up with all capacity, human resource, and infrastructure ready to conduct clinical trials in an epidemic setting. And this is really in the Ebola-prone region of Western Uganda, in the Rwenzori region of Western Uganda, where Ebola which is very prone to Ebola outbreaks. So we do have a team, high-level infrastructure with international collaborators to do that. But we've also conducted vaccine trials for Ebola and Marburg over the last few years.
So you're well versed in working in pandemic situations. So describe how your research activities were conducted in these pandemics and then prior to a pandemic, and also how COVID has changed the conduct and practice of your clinical trials during this pandemic.
Okay. So pandemics are usually in national-led efforts to combat pandemics are usually led by the national Ministries of Health. And that is the same here in Uganda. So there's usually a national task force on which we are represented as Makerere University Walter Reed Project. And we do offer expertise in preparations, policy development, and resources, or human resource when required, to be able to support response as well as detection and surveillance. So previous to this COVID outbreak, we really worked normally in most of our trial fields, trial sites. and we do have trial sites in different parts of the country. So we worked normally, like like many people all over the world. We interacted well with each other. We got our participants over to the site for us to be able to conduct our studies. We spoke to them physically with not much caution and no physical or social distancing. We chatted about life generally well. And we did conduct studies, several studies as per approved protocols. So seeing them as scheduled, we used to give them reminder calls. We used to sit as a team every morning or at the end of the week to plan and review our work. And worked with the Ministry of Health, because COVID, by the time COVID came, we were already dealing with Ebola. Considering our neighbors in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been battling with it since 2018. So making sure Ebola doesn't come, or if it came, we are ready. So we'd have meetings with the National Task Force to ensure that we are participating in the fight or preparedness activities to combat Ebola. So before COVID arrived, we had Ebola to worry about, but Ebola was really at bay. So we really lived a normal life, generally, carrying out our trial activities according to protocol, approved by ethical and the national regulators, and we interacted like normal human beings with our participants.
You mentioned the national regulators. Have they supported clinical trial activities that had to pivot in the pandemic? And how have they done this?
So inevitably, a lot had to change because when the pandemic hit Uganda, we did get a national lockdown, not announced. It was abrupt. So even the regulators had not yet at that time given us any guidance on how to handle our research studies or how to handle work at the sites. We knew it was coming, but we really didn't know when. So when it hit, the regulators did send us instructions, and one of them was stop all recruitment of new participants on any research trial. Don't let any research participants come to the sites. So we literally closed, and I remember we had almost a whole week of no activity at all. But over time, they did allow us to open. The government and the government regulations indicated that essential health workers could work. So as much of the work we do is clinical, much as it's research, we do have people who have received investigational products and need to be looked after. We received a go-ahead to open our sites. But even then, only to a limited degree. So the regulations were that we could see participants for critical visits that were required for maintaining study integrity. And we had to put risk mitigation plans in place. They had to be approved before the site could do any operations. But we were allowed to speak to our participants over the phone to ensure their safety. So we could collect safety data over the phone and document it, but from home. So we did several telephone contacts. So the studies have several missed physical visits, but we do have safety data that we collected over the phone. So the regulators were supportive under all circumstances. And when it was when the lockdown was eased, they also eased how much we could do. And for as long as your risk management plans were approved and you followed them, you're taking temperatures, you limit number of participants and staff at the site, you could operate. So we went back to normal operations within the confines of the risk mitigation plans that we had drawn.
So you mentioned now that the lockdown is over in Uganda and that you're moving towards normalcy. Do you think the end of the pandemic is in sight? And also, you've made many changes. You've reduced in-contact visits. I think you've increased trial efficiencies. And we've all learned how to work virtually, like this interview. Do you think there are any changes that will take you to a different place in the future? Any changes you're going to keep because they've been good for you? And what would you be glad to leave behind?
Okay. Thank you. And is the pandemic coming to end? For us, it's actually increasing. We have come at the back of the epidemic compared to the rest of the world. We had a lockdown really early, but now the more it got eased, the more infections we got. We are seeing nearly 200 new cases per day now. Of course, testing has increased over time, so we're able to test more people. So for us, it's not anywhere near finished yet. And remember, we're also in this campaign, presidential campaign time. So there's crowds gathering around presidential candidates. There's riots and chaos sometimes on the streets. So we don't think it's stopping yet. But at least we know what it is we need to do. And many people don't wear masks all the time. That is a behavioral practice we're not used to. We are a hot country. We get tired. We're not very compliant with things that we're not used to. So it's not as bad as it's been in many other countries, not even our neighboring Kenya, but it's not going to stop yet. It's not stopping yet. However, we have learned to do many things differently. One, we have actually been able to assess what activities, which departments can work from home. We are lucky that from a technology perspective, we were able to set up stuff quickly and to work from home, to be able to access databases, to be able to access Zoom for meetings, and internet. Everyone has internet to work at home, which wasn't the case. So previously, only a few people were given internet to be able to continue work, actually not to work from home, but continue working from home. You come to office when the day is done and you're out and about and need to continue working. So senior managers and maybe middle-level managers were supported to work from home. But now nearly everybody needed support to work from home. Of course, from a clinical trials perspective, we need to see participants physically. Okay, that is the ideal. But we've also learned that there are visits that are not like critical, that participants need to come in. If a participant is feeling well and they're going about their day and they have no issues, maybe we could really collect data from, over the phone. They don't have to take a journey to come to the clinic and spend a day trying to be seen. And all they're going to tell us is, I've actually been very well over all the days since we last met. So that means that it would be nice while we're designing trials to think about the possibilities of actually collecting some safety data over the phone. So that's one of the things that would be nice to keep, so that we don't unnecessarily make everyone travel to the clinics to be seen if they are well, and we don't have to draw blood because some visits don't require sample draws, okay? However, we did need to think critically about how to collect data over the phone. It's not something we have been doing previously, where we're taking study data over the phone. So we needed to get that approval. Of course, the regulators had said you can collect safety data. So it was like approval for us to do that. So we have to have SOPs on what information to collect, how do we talk to the people, train staff on what, how far to go. It's easier when you're talking to somebody face to face. But on the phone, you have to confirm they're the right person, that they are where they're comfortable to talk to you from where they are, and that their confidentiality is not compromised while you're talking to them on the phone. So we've had to put in place SOPs, and those will still be, revised as we go along. But that's another thing we need to think about. The other thing is the hygiene practices. All of us now are involved in the hygiene of the places where we work. Previously, we used to have people that are designated to come into our rooms, clean them, at the end of the day or very early before work begins. Now, all of us have to clean our workstations. So we're all involved in making sure our premises and our equipment and everything we use is clean and, sanitized and disinfected appropriately. So I think that is a bonus. We wash hands like 1 million times a day, as many times as we remember. It's costly, on the other hand, because we've had to really ensure that there's alcohol everywhere, and that people have the cleaning equipment. But that's a positive that we would like to see going forward. Can we all maintain that level of hygiene going forward? So I think those are some of the things we would like to, but of course, virtual meetings are a bit tiring if you have so many in a day. But previously, all meetings were physical, except if you called somebody on the phone, and that is because if they didn't have to come to meet with you. But now we speak to people every time, all the time. Even your neighbors next door, you can speak to them, on Zoom. I think that is helpful because there are many times when you really don't have enough time in the day to be more running from one meeting to another just because you have to be there physically. So hopefully this can also continue, and we can take meetings anywhere in the day.
That sums it up really well. And you've given us many lessons to think about and many changes that we will make and maybe keep some of them, as you say, to run more efficiently. You are well versed in working in a pandemic, and you are very used to stringent infection control. So these added measures are very useful when it comes from someone with so much of experience on the ground. So it's been great to hear from you this morning. And Sabin and I look forward to strong collaborations with yourself and Makerere University. And thank you for your time.